Hey folks, welcome to another WaterTrek 360. Today I'm down here in St. Croix. That is the Frederiksted Pier. That is Butler Bay. Today I'll be going out and hopefully doing some wrecks. Let's go have some fun. This is part 2 of my 3-part series on diving the west end of St. Croix. Today we'll visit some of the wrecks in Butler Bay. Butler Bay is located on the northwestern corner of St. Croix and is home to several wrecks. It is listed as Area G, one of the 7 sites approved in 1974 to be used for artificial reefs in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It is broken into 2 general groupings, the deep wrecks of Rosa Maria and the Coakley Bay, and the shallow wrecks including Hydrolab, Virgin Islander, Northwind, and Suffolk Maid. The remains of the old Frederiksted Pier, now a dive site called Armageddon, as well as a site known as the Jungle Gym, are sometimes included in this. The Jungle Gym is not really a wreck, but the remnants of a movie prop used for a TV movie in 1986 about Mel Fisher's search for the Etosha. It sits in 25 feet of water. The Aegir, named after a Norse sea giant, was used in 1969 through 1971 off Hawaii. It weighed 224 dry tons and was capable of supporting 6 divers at a depth of 580 feet for up to 14 days. The Aegir underwater habitat was brought from Hawaii to replace NOAA's Hydrolab in the Salt River. The Aegir consisted of 2 large cylinders connected by a sphere in the center. These were for living space, control room, and laboratory functions. Unlike the Hydrolab, the Aegir had 2 ballast tanks, which means it could raise and lower itself to the seafloor rather than requiring use of a crane. The Aegir was later deployed near St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and it serviced 80 missions on St. Croix from 1977 to 1985. Funding for the project supporting it ran out, it was decommissioned, and in 1985 dismantled and dropped as an artificial reef among the shallow wrecks in Butler Bay. There's really not much to see here, but it does have an easy swim through if you are so inclined. For informational purposes, in this video I used 3 cameras, an iPhone 14 Pro, an InstaOne 360R, and a GoPro Hero. About 150 feet west-northwest of the Aegir is the Virgin Islander. It's the largest of the wrecks here. She's 300-foot Hess fuel barge, which was sunk in 1991. The deepest part of the wreck lies about 70 feet, but the average depth is roughly 50. Virgin Islander is now heavily encrusted with sponges and corals, including some tiny fans and pink coral and golden cup coral. You'll also find sea fans, tube worms, and plenty of schooling fish. There's reportedly a resident grouper, I didn't see him on this day, as well as stingrays in the sand around the ship. It faces in an east-west direction. The first thing you notice is how flat it is. There is no real superstructure, and how massive it really is. It's a giant flat-top wreck the size of a football field. I purposely shot this using the iPhone super wide lens so that you could get a sense of how much area it really covers. I wasn't able to find out much about her prior history or why she was ultimately donated as an artificial reef. The oil company Hess did release a publication in the late 90s about economic benefits of artificial reefs and oil platforms, which may have been a consideration earlier. This is a fun wreck for macro photographers. It's big enough not to get crowded and flat enough to get nice stable shots. One of the cameras I like to use is a 360 camera. It gives me an opportunity to capture images of the wrecks like this, as well as true 360 photos. It's another tool to give you a different look when diving. That's me holding the camera. I love tiny planet photos. On the way to the next wreck, we had the pleasure of seeing a couple of reef sharks. One of them appears to have been tagged. The Suffolk Maid is a 123-foot-long steel-hulled North Sea trawler, driven into the Frederiksted pier by Hurricane Croix in 1984, eventually grounding a short distance away. After some research, I obtained additional historical information not provided by any scuba shop or travel post about the Suffolk Maid. I found out the Suffolk Maid was originally named the Tiberian GY 673, built by the famous Cochrane & Sons Limited, established in 1896. The Tiberian was built in Selby, England, yard number 1464, for Sir Thomas Robinson & Son, out of Grimsby Limited. She was launched on February 5, 1961, and completed in November of 1961. Her length was 122 feet 9 inches with a 25-foot 10-inch beam. Her gross tonnage was 302 tons and was powered by a 790 bhp bronze 2-stroke 12-cylinder diesel engine. In October 1976, she was sold to the Dagon Fishing Company Limited of Lowestoft. She then became the Tiberian LT 273. In 1977, she was converted to the standby vessel, the Tiberian. In August of 1978, she was sold to the Small & Company Limited and then resumed fishing as the Suffolk Maid LT 349. In 1981, she was sold to Caribbean owners who intended to convert her into a cargo vessel. However, in 1984, before the conversion was completed, Hurricane Croix hit. The Suffolk Maid was later cleaned, gutted, and towed to Butler Bay, where she was scuttled in December of 1985. She now sits upright in 60 to 80 feet of water, only a few hundred yards south of the wreck of the Rosa Maria, and 100 yards so north of the Virgin Island. She faces in a westerly direction. You'll see she has no superstructure. That was removed during the planned conversion. She has some cutouts and is pretty wide open and can be penetrated. Creole wrasses are abundant, and with green moray, fairly common sight, you will see quite a bit of fish. My only peeve doing this shallow wreck grouping is that boat tours try and do all 4 on a single dive. That's great for the first time around, but if you want to get any appreciable time on the bigger wrecks for photography, that is limited.
and you will need to do multiple dives on this site. On this day, we did not have enough time to penetrate the Suffolk Maid or get any detailed shots. We actually had to surface earlier than anticipated, and we never got to the north wind on this dive, since there was already a boat on the north wind when we got to the site, and we started in reverse order. We did the Aegir first, which to me is the least interesting of the four. This was the end of December, early January, and the Christmas trade winds were pretty strong. Unfortunately, I never got back to any of the shallow wrecks, nor able to visit the deeper wrecks while I was in St. Croix. In retrospect, probably spent too much time on the Virgin Islander. Oh well, next time I'll go in the spring.
So that's part 2 of this 3-part series on diving the west end of St. Croix. Unfortunately, I was unable to get back to any of the shipwrecks during my stay there due to the Christmas winds. Those trade winds show up in December and January and create a lot of challenges. I covered that in part 1 on the Frederiksted Pier, so if you want any more information on that, do check that out. Part 3, covering some of the reefs on the west end, will be releasing pretty soon. I hope you guys are all enjoying your diving. And as always, until the next time, go explore, get wet,